We will now officially start the program. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Jazz and Conversation with Judge Michael Peay, organized by the Washington for Law Society. I'm Juliana Canet, the president of the Washington for Law Society, founded in 1952 to promote the knowledge and understanding of international legal matter, comparative issue, and foreign law. This evening, we have a truly new format. We will hear more jazz, wonderful music. You already had a little bit of an introduction and warm up, followed by a conversation with Judge Peay. We will close with more music. Given the number of participants, you will be muted during the webinar, but you will be able to communicate with us via Q&A section. Thank you already to those that sent a very nice and warm question for Judge Peay. Please send question if you have for Judge Peay on the Q&A section, and we'll get to your question toward the end of the session. This session will be recorded and hopefully uploaded on our website, so check past program and future program on our website. The Judge Peay will be interviewed by Professor Stewart. Professor Stewart joined Georgetown University Law Center in 2008, following his retirement from the U.S. Department of State's Office of the Legal Advisor. At Georgetown, he co-directs the Global Law Scholar Program and the Center for Transactional Business and the Law. He's teaching many courses, and he's also chair of the board of the American branch of the International Law Association and member of the board of editor of the American Journal of International Law. Welcome, Professor Stewart. Welcome, Judge Peay. Professor Stewart, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Juliana. And it's a great honor to have the opportunity to join you tonight and to introduce my very good friend and longtime colleague, Judge Michael Peay. As you've indicated, we were colleagues for many, many years at the Department of State. Judge Peay, for those of you who are unfamiliar with his extraordinary career, let me recap it very briefly. Judge Peay, following graduation from Coppin State, took his master's degree from a wonderful institution in Washington, the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, and then proceeded to get his law degree from Harvard. And following that, in 1973, he joined the Washington office of what was then Hogan and Hartson for several years, and in 1975 transitioned to be National Director of the Southern Africa Project of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, after which in about 1977, he joined the Department of State Office of the Legal Advisors. I think, Michael, that was just slightly after I joined. We were almost exactly contemporaries. Yeah. And he had an extraordinary career of almost 33 years in that wonderful office, rising in the ranks and spending a good number of them in the ranks of the senior executive service as assistant legal advisor. And I'm sure he'd be happy to share some of the experiences that he had with you. I have always been jealous of your career, Michael, because you had two opportunities that escaped me. You spent several years, 4 or 5, advising our ambassador five altogether in Geneva. A tough duty, very tough duty. I know it was hard work, but it's not a bad place to live. And after that, advising the ambassador to and our mission to UNESCO in Paris, another hardship post, after which you returned to the department for a few years and then have retired. And since then, not one to be retired and to rest on your laurels, you were elected judge of the Administrative Tribunal at the OAS, where you've served already, what, 6 years?
3 years.
3 years out of a 6-year term. Right. So it's an extraordinary career, and I know that you'll have much to share with the audience, and we'll respond to their questions shortly. But more important than that, you are an accomplished and performing jazz pianist and composer, as we've already heard. and a wonderful father of 3 sons and a very good friend. So I'm very fortunate to be able to say that we work together. I've admired your career. I'm delighted to introduce you tonight. And I think we'll hear more of your musical talents now. Is that correct, Juliana?
Yes, and actually, as an anecdote, I have to say that we created this program because Judge Peay kindly attended another session and saw my piano in the background. So you never know, never put limits to the law, and that's why we are here tonight. Thank you, Professor Stewart. Now I will mute myself so we can enjoy the music.
Well, before I start on the piano, if I could just take,
I took a lot of.
I can hear someone speaking. I don't know
paid
if.
a lot of attention to what our visiting artist said.
In any event, I'd like to first thank each and every person who's taken time out of their very busy schedules. Yes, even in this time of COVID, people still have busy schedules to tune in today to today's program. And I want to thank Juliana Khan and the wonderful Washington Foreign Law Society for this opportunity. I want to thank my dear, dear friend and colleague, Professor David Stewart, whom I have held in high esteem for many, many years. I couldn't be more pleased to have someone handle this program doing what he will be doing than to have someone like him. And let me, while I have the floor, just say, I want to thank all of my friends and family members who've taken time to tune in. I've got at least 2 nieces in my family who are in Casablanca, Morocco, who are watching. I have a sister who lives in Mexico and 3 sisters in the United States and very close friends. So I want to thank you all. And with that, let me just introduce the first 2 songs I'm going to play. The first one is a bossa nova tune out of Brazil, written by the famous bossa nova composer Antonio Carlos Jobim. It's entitled Wave. The second tune I will play is what they call straight ahead bebop jazz standard entitled Stella by Starlight. And then I will have a special treat for you after that. But let's start with Wave.
So even though we muted everybody, they say applause for you. So don't feel that you don't have an applause.
Don't worry, I can hear it. I can hear it. Okay. The third song, and do we have time for just one more, Julia? I think so.
Yes.
Okay, is a wonderful love song. It's a ballad. It's a beautiful thing that very few people perform. But I want to share the lyrics with you because at this time of COVID, there's so much to feel down about that it's good to hear, I think, some beautiful poetry, which are the lyrics that go to this particular beautiful melody. And it's a romantic melody and lyric. So the lyrics, I'm going to play the song, but the lyrics are as follows. The title of the tune is, I Bought You Violets for Your Furs. Now, I know that fur coats are not in fashion these days, c'est démodé, according to the French. However, for those of you who have furs, and for men who bought their significant others furs, this song is for you. And it starts like this. Because I bought you violets for your furs, and it was spring for a little while. Remember, I bought you violets for your furs, and it was April in that December. The snow drifted down on those flowers, and melted where it laid. The snow looked like dew on the blossoms as on a summer day. Yes, I bought you violets for your furs, and there was blue in the wintry sky. You pinned the violets to your furs and gave a lift to the clouds passing by. You smiled at me so sweetly. Since then, one thought occurs, that we fell in love completely the day I bought you violets for your furs.
Symbolic applause from all the audience. Thank you, Judge Peay. Thank you. Professor Stewart.
Did you want one more?
I think we're ready to move to the second part.
Okay.
Michael, that was terrific.
Thank you.
We have a few questions to ask you. I had some having to do with your career, but the chat function has indicated that most of our listeners are really quite intrigued by your musical talents and background. So let me start with a trio of questions on that topic. They all go together, so it's a threefer. What kinds of music did you listen to growing up? what influenced you musically growing up? And here's a challenge, Michael. What lessons from jazz can be applied to the practice of law, or perhaps vice versa?
All excellent questions. Well, the house I lived in, my parents were wonderful parents. My mother was an accomplished pianist and pipe organist who played at church for 25 years, and music was always in the house. So I became an omnivore of music. She played classical, but she played everything. And one of the great joys of we kids when we were growing up, but which I'm sure annoyed my mother at a certain point, was we would continue to ask her to play boogie woogie music. I don't know if people know what boogie woogie music is, but listen to it, you will see. But she had a great left hand. Anyhow, so I listened to everything, and the music opened my mind to the outside world, just as maps that I used to get for 5 cents from National Geographic opened my mind to the outside physical world. So at the time when my mind was being expanded from in the musical realm, it was also being expanded in the geographical realm, causing me to develop a sense of intense, uncontrollable, and still not under control wanderlust. Someone would ask me, where would you like to go in the world? Where would you like to visit? And my standard answer was, any place I haven't yet seen, and the sooner the better. The jazz music created in me a love of creativity. I used to love listening to how the jazz musicians would take a simple theme and then improvise on it. And indeed, you know, that is one of the hardest things to learn to do. I mean, learning how to play jazz for me was many times harder than getting through law school. Law school was a cakewalk compared to learning how to play this at a competent level. Anyhow, but improvisation and creativity, spontaneous creativity, go hand in hand in law and jazz. When you listen to arguments before any court, the Supreme Court or whatever, you know, you get questions thrown at you by the justices that come out of every angle of the law, and you hope that you have prepared yourself to anticipate all of those questions. But invariably, they will throw a question at you that you had not seen. And on your feet, you've got to spontaneously pull together what you've learned and construct a credible, intelligible response that is at least an effort to respond seriously and substantively to that question. So I would say that in response to that series of questions, David.
That's a wonderful answer, Mike, and it leads actually to another question. Do you consider jazz to be, in some sense, a gateway to cultural understanding with folks in other societies?
Without question. I'm so glad that that question was put, because the first time I heard bossa nova music, I said, I must go to Brazil. What are these people like? How can they create such beautiful music? And that passion for bossa nova and for samba has extended. And when I heard Ravi Shankar playing the sitar from India, oh my God, the same thing. And the pentatonic scale of Oriental music. I mean, you can play, you know, oh, sorry, you go. That sounds very Oriental. And all I'm playing are the 5 black keys. And so that opened up my mind. And then when I went to Morocco and listened to the Andalusian performers, the singers, the drummers, the everything, all of that it shows us such a great world that we live in if we could just find a way to get along with everyone. One of my favorite images in my life was that great photo that the astronauts took looking back at Earth from I don't know how many thousands of miles out into space. And when you look at that, you realize that we are here by ourselves. And it is our imperative duty to find a way to get along. So I could come back to that theme perhaps in another question, but what's your next one?
The next one is also the same theme, and I think probably is your answer will be quite interesting to a number of people. Can you gently share a must-listen jazz playlist? And the questioner says, during pandemic times and working from home, music has been a great companion.
Well, it's so funny. This question had to have been asked because in 1996, because I kept getting requests from other people about, Mike, can you tell us what is suggested? I'm trying to get more and more into jazz. Can you give me a list of must-buy albums or must-listen-to albums? And at that time, I had a jazz radio program here in Washington, D.C. for 7 years with 3 other guys. So I finally sat down and put together a list, here it is, of 42 must-listen-to or must-purchase jazz albums with comments on why they are important and with asterisks. The ones that have asterisks are the ones you absolutely must buy. The ones that have a single asterisk and a double asterisk, and with little interesting comments that are true. For instance, to give you just a sense, there's one album called John Coltrane and Johnny Hartman, and my little parenthetical comment to people of childbearing age is that if you don't want to have any more babies, do not listen to this album with your significant other before you go to bed. And when you hear that album, you will understand why. I will stop there, but I will make this list available to anybody who wants it.
Judge, we can, if you give us the list, we can share with the audience, at least to the registered people.
Right.
And then they will use it at their own risk. We are still a law society, so the disclaimer is use at your own risk.
Right. It's not comprehensive, but it is I think most jazz musicians would look at this list and say, yeah, I agree with this. You could add more to it, but this is a good start.
I take it, Michael, you're not providing any warranties or guarantees with that list.
As a lawyer, absolutely not. And maybe I should write that on that list.
One question from the more professional side of your life. Let's see, I have no idea what the Administrative Tribunal of the OAS is about. Could you explain that in terms of what standing the tribunal has to judge and enforce and what penalties it can imply?
Totally valid question. The first thing to understand is that the Administrative Tribunal is not like the International Court of Justice or the Inter-American Commission or the Inter-American Court of Human Rights or any of those, or the International Criminal Court. We have no subject matter enforcement authority with respect to states. The Administrative Tribunal for the OAS is one of 15 so far international administrative tribunals that are associated with international organizations. For instance, the World Bank has an administrative tribunal. The IMF has an administrative tribunal. NATO has an administrative tribunal. John Crook, our colleague, is a judge on the Administrative Tribunal, David. What they do is we adjudicate claims and disputes that arise between employees and the administrative management staff. Whenever you have a large congregation of employees at an international organization, there are rules and procedures that govern the workplace expectations, rights, and guarantees, procedural and substantive. And if some staff member feels that they, for instance, haven't gotten a promotion that they deserve, or that their job hasn't been properly classified to meet the level of responsibility that they have assumed, which should lead to a higher pay scale, or if they have been fired in a way that, or moved to another position that they think was inappropriate. If the management staff and the staff, through their administrative internal procedures, are unable to resolve the matter, then either or both can bring that matter to the Administrative Tribunal, and we sit as a court and take evidence, read briefs, have hearings, look at the discovery, the documents that have been produced, and we render a decision, an impartial decision based on the facts, the relevant laws and procedures, and the arguments that have been presented. Sometimes management wins, sometimes the staff member wins. So it's like an administrative court to protect employee rights. You're muted.
You're muted.
Mhm.
In the meantime, I can say that we met through our work. Via
Yes,
the
that's how I met Juliana.
Some clarification in our group
IDV.
about
So
what you
Juliana, you were the executive secretary for the Inter-American Development Bank, right? Yes. And these administrative tribunals are close cousins. They meet, they talk to each other, we learn from each other, we read each other's jurisprudence. We try to, administrative, I guess you could call it international civil servant administrative law, is a burgeoning, growing subset of international law that is very dynamic, and we are promoting it through our litigation and jurisprudence.
Juliana, do we have time for one more question? Michael, this is a personal question because I know from your background and the time we've worked together of your love of not only of the law, but of international law, of its place and role in the world of foreign relations. And I know that you have spent a lot of effort in trying to attract younger people into the career, the kind of career that you've had. And you and I have actually worked together on some occasions,
Yes.
in particular to reach out to people who may not have thought about that kind of career. Do you have any particular words of invitation, insight into the kind of career you've had and why it is a productive one, and why some of our younger people who may be drawn to the international sphere should think about a career in international law? You've had several different aspects to that, and you have some insights to share to the younger people who may be wondering, is this a good thing to consider? How might I do it?
Yes, I would be more than happy to. And first of all, international law is one of the rapidly expanding areas of, or subsets of law in general. And it is a growth industry that is all encompassing, and it addresses literally the whole spectrum of human activity, whether it's the environment, human rights, law enforcement, justice, cables beneath the sea, outer space, nuclear weapons, everything, how we manage planes flying internationally in a coherent, orderly way. International law covers all of that. Well, and when you join an organization like the Department of State, or you go into the field of international law, you can expect to have experiences that you simply will not find, in my view, in the private sector. You'll have great experiences in the private sector, but nothing like you have in international and public international law. My advice to young people would be, if you're interested, get involved early with international law so that you can demonstrate on your resume that you have taken an interest, a demonstrable interest in the field, and in a way that would be found interesting by a potential employer. Write an article on a subject of international law that is of interest to you. If you're still in a position to learn a new language, a foreign language, learn a new foreign language, and then maintain the proficiency of it. If you can, spend a semester abroad, a full academic year abroad, or even a summer abroad if you can. If your time and financial circumstances allow, before going to law school, if you want to go into international law, if you can, try to do a master's degree or do a joint law and master's degree program, because the master's degree in international relations will give you a substantive foundation in international relations, plus the companion of law and how the two go together. When you're in law school, try to take as many international law classes as you can. And as a student, definitely join as a student such important international law organizations such as the Washington Foreign Law Society, the American Society of International Law, the International Law Association. If you're in law school, try to join the editorial staff of an international law journal, if they have an international law journal. Summer jobs, try to get a summer job that will get you exposed in some way to international affairs or international law, including on a volunteer basis if you can do that. So those are some suggestions that I would have for young up-and-coming lawyers interested in international law.
Terrific. Thank you, Michael. Speaking for the audience, thanks for your very insightful thoughts and comments, but I'm sensing an overwhelming desire by the audience for more music.
We might
Okay.
have maybe a last question only.
Yes.
A burning question, then we can go back to the music, because
Yes.
we receive a lot of questions.
Well, one of the questions that someone asks is, what was one of my most kind of rewarding experiences as an international lawyer? And I would like to just take a second to share two of them real quick. One, before I joined the Office of the Legal Advisor at the State Department, I was a human rights lawyer at the, as David said, at the Lawyers Committee, fighting apartheid in South Africa. And I led a litigation action along with my co-counsel, Gola Butcher, a distinguished international human rights lawyer, to block, that was successful in blocking South Africa from getting a substantial quantity of highly enriched weapons grade uranium from the United States. It had imported that uranium from two of its nuclear reactors and asked the United States to upgrade it to weapons grade. Now, what we discovered when we filed the Freedom of Information Act request was that we were providing South Africa this periodic weapons grade uranium in violation of not only international law and the 1971 World Court decision on Namibia, the 1971 World Court decision, but also in violation of US law, the Atomic Energy Act of 1954. And when we filed our briefs, it was so embarrassing that the State Department asked the US Nuclear Regulatory Commission to suspend any further review of South Africa's export application, because in the letter that they sent, the State Department and the White House had decided to undertake a, quote, thoroughgoing policy review, unquote, of US South Africa nuclear cooperation. That suspension started with the Jimmy Carter administration and carried over into both Reagan administrations. By that time, the situation in South Africa had become unstable. No one knew what was going to happen. Apartheid was getting undermined and there was a rising black tide. So they stopped any interest in cooperating with South Africa to give them a weapon. And then when South Africa, the post-South Africa government, the post-apartheid government came into power, they renounced the nuclear weapons program. So we stopped it just in time because the South African apartheid regime wanted to use a nuclear weapon to threaten its African neighbors. And I'm proud of that. One little final point is that about foreign language skills, you never know when they will come in handy. I found myself negotiating a treaty in Morocco in 1983. We get there, the Moroccans say they have no simultaneous interpretation. And the Attorney General of the United States is coming in 12 days to sign the agreement we were being asked to negotiate. Our delegation didn't speak Arabic. Their delegation didn't speak English, but I spoke fluent French. So I know that the Moroccan constitution said French is one of the official languages. So I asked them, could we negotiate a draft text until the interpreters come in French? He said yes. He didn't think that anybody from our delegation spoke French. So we negotiated for 4 days. We negotiated the text in French. Finally, the interpreters came. Long story short, because we were able to finish on time and produce the agreement for King Hassan and the Attorney General to sign, I was able to, the Attorney General of the United States found out about my extraordinary effort, and he wrote me a personal letter of congratulations, and here it is, framed, saying thank you for your untiring and outstanding efforts in Morocco, and it was tiring, but I'll stop there. So shall we segue to the music? Okay. All right. Why don't we start with something from the pen of Duke Ellington. Everybody knows Duke Ellington. And the name of this tune is Satin Gold. No. Okay. Oh, this next tune is one of the rare jazz waltzes. It's written to 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's called Waltz for Debbie, this one.
Beautiful.
There is a wonderful tune that, if I could find it, I would like to play for you. Here it is.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but your sound's a little low. Can you maybe turn it up a little?
Really? Okay.
I think he's adjusted to the piano, so when you play is fine. It's just when you speak.
Yes, it's adjusted to the piano. This next song, I'm going to take everybody back to their childhood, when all of us probably saw the animated film Peter Pan. And, you know, jazz musicians love to play all kinds of music. And they play this song and they play Someday My Prince Will Come. Everybody remembers that. And the name of this song is The Second Star to the Right. And it's the opening musical theme that you hear as soon as the film starts, and just before Peter Pan arrives from Never Never Land, from the second star to the right. And this song is about how you get to Never Never Land.
We don't hear, sorry, we don't hear a lot.
Okay. Time for one more.
We now have some issue with your sound. Maybe you're setting it off, but I think everybody, I would like to congratulate on behalf of all the audience and the attendees as being a wonderful, warm event. We need a little bit of more music and heart in our legal profession. So everybody is enjoying really the nice touch that the judge has brought. And I leave the floor to Professor Stewart to conclude.
Michael, thank you so much for that. It's been a wonderful event, and I thank you for your music and your comments and reading from the responses on the chat function. People have really appreciated the art with which you've provided the music and the very thoughtful and sound comments that you've had. So we're getting, your votes are bravo, magnificent, fantastic, etc. So congratulations.
So thank you on behalf of the society. I thank you, both of you, and to the audience, stay tuned literally for next events. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice evening.